Yo, thank you guys so much. Yo, we got our last segment. It's one that I've been wanting to do. And yo, a lot of praise and thank you to everyone who's been participating. Yo, I'm gonna call it out again. Abel Rosas, Cameron Purrier, Blurdish, Keith Coop, Random Bots, Average Rugger. Thank you all so much for being a participant in the live, continue the conversation. But of course, we also have our conversations that happen when it comes to the actual videos afterwards. And a lot of times I just answer them in the comments, especially on YouTube. But this time I wanted to kind of talk about them because I think they were great. These are great responses, great engagement, and I think something that everybody should ponder. So, kind of first off, coming into it, I wanted to go with one that we got a few days ago by I am Nutty 8471. He was speaking about my review, my suggestions on what MLR and rugby should truly do to be able to improve themselves. So I am Nutty 8471 says, very American approach to a solution as a non-American. I can say there is bound to be some truth there, but it wouldn't fly too much elsewhere. It would be better to fly the amateur flag to avoid the NFL becoming boring tag 3 hours of 60 minutes with highlight videos, most of the gameplay. And and he's speaking again, obviously, to how to reach audiences. I know one person, I can't remember if it was him or somebody else, had explained to me about how South Africa views rugby, that it's very, here in the moment. You kind of take, people would rather go to the pub and watch a game with their friends, and then if they want to, they can take the train to the stadium, be able to go play a game or something to that effect. And not play a game, to go watch a game and something to that effect. And it allows an idea of like, okay, it can be a communal thing. My only pushback would be is that if it was sustainable, I don't know if there would be so much worry about like what happened with the URC or where South Africa would be. I don't think South Africa would have left Super Rugby. And you can tell me if I'm wrong or not. But I think a lot of the issues have been monetary. And I think a lot of the issues are, not being able to fill up the stadiums, or if you do, it's for very specific games, not being able to have enough streams. And the key reason I was saying what I did was to not just bring the fans that are established, but to be able to bring fans that are casuals who might have been on the fringe. Like if you guys remember the movie Invictus, and obviously, talking about the 1995 Rugby World Cup win by South Africa in South Africa, while Nelson Mandela Madiba was a rugby fan, his presence provided rugby casuals who were either against the box or had just never thought about them at all to be able to come to the game, which helped promote more of the countrywide unity around the win of this Rugby World Cup. And I think that's what I'm trying to be able to bring on that. It's very difficult to be able to create a sustainable professional league. And I know you said, rather run the amateur rugby flag, but I think that's kind of plays a little bit of the problem. You need spectators. From the amateur side, of course, you get players for days. It's a very selective unit. And as my co-host George Hook said for Rugby Odds, the game has changed because it is less of a player's game and more of a spectator's game. And so you have these elements of abuse and stuff like that. But I do believe that you need to have a way to bring in casuals, especially like here in the U.S. And I think places like England, you're starting to see that run low, that there's not as many people playing rugby, and hence it's suffering the product of the professional or the upward mobility that goes along with it. Even additionally, New Zealand is a different case, and obviously it's a smaller population, but you have those who obviously it's a very focused rugby country, but there's just also nothing else to be able to do that much. And there's the upward mobility that goes as being a player that can add to jobs that are not necessarily in rugby that help use the sport to promote. So if you don't have those tools to be able to, increase that, I don't know if you're able to really show out as much as you really want to with your rugby. So that was my position. Let me know what you think, brother. Let me know what you think, or sister. I don't know for sure. Uh, I got USA Rugby League fan. Let me put this correctly. What are you doing? USA Rugby League fan. USA Rugby League Union fan, great conversation with this guy. Said, I've made the road trip from LA to San Diego to watch Union games. Then LA came and I volunteered for the Giltinis. I paid for my gas and spent my Saturdays helping out on game day. I spent over 1K on MLR gear, MLR logo, and Giltini stuff. I follow religiously. We as fans need to bring people to the games, buy them a $20 ticket, and support the clubs. It's up to us fans. This product is the best in America, better than NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, and MLS. It's number one in my opinion. We need to bring people on board. Thank you so much, USA Rugby League Union fan. We've talked multiple times, so I want to give you your props exactly where it's at in the person. Look, again, it kind of reaches back to what I was saying with Nutty. Like, you have to find ways of bringing casuals in. He was speaking in regards to the episode from last week and me talking about the MLR being in trouble and why it's functionally in a red flag arena. And he speaks to it. You do need to be bringing fans. I think one thing that really does suffer is that there's not central elements. This is why I was talking about real estate in the last episode, and you guys can check it out or watch it on YouTube where I have MLR. What do you call it? MLR solutions for the 6 solutions for MLR and rugby in whole video. You can go absolutely check it out. But I was like, look, you need to have a place where people can congregate. One thing, and I've learned about this with Argentina rugby, is Argentina is a broke nation. Like, it wasn't always before, but it's a broke nation. Like, economically, they are in the hole. But a lot of almost all their players come from very elite areas. So that's a little bit different. But the most important thing is that they come from clubs with very, very high sustainable loyalty that has been there for hundreds of years, that passed down through generations. Now, obviously, for us, that's what we use for universities. But you need to have a place where you can streamline people centrally so you can kind of push them down the funnel, so it makes the interest of being able to bring them to the game. Like, not everybody's going to be like, rugby union league fan, because not everyone's going to give the time, but everybody can give for their entertainment value. They'll give a little bit for something that's convenient back to them. It's why the pubs were always such a significant component of rugby, because it was the pub, then the rugby teams were unionized or centralized around that pub and built around it. My boy McFeely, who I mentioned a lot of times, talked about how his club had like one membership fee, and it gave them access to locker rooms, it gave them access to the restaurants, it gave them access to weight rooms, it gave them access to the field, multiple fields, and then the team, then you develop from there. So you need to have a place where people can be able to congregate to. I don't necessarily always say it needs to be a pub, because I don't necessarily believe that we should always be pushing heavy drinking when it comes to rugby anymore. I think that's a little bit of an archaic placement, but we just want a gathering spot where people are willing to invest money on a regular basis, and then be able to use that to be able to develop. And that allows people to bring whole groups over to professional leagues. This is why we have what do they call it? Boosters for college. That's just guys that have come together under the guise of supporting this university and their sports athletic program and paying out to be able to provide it. Like, it is exactly what's needed. And I think because of the club system that we have it now, it's a little difficult. I don't think it's just because it's just splintered, but I don't think that the system has ever been put into place. They've all been started as nonprofits because it was easier in terms of like not having to deal with taxes. You could receive donations where people could get tax-free revenue, and it was an element to induce giving while giving a value back that couldn't be replaced with a transaction. So it made sense why we've been doing it, but I do believe that as time goes, we want to be able to move towards maybe a more club or centralized model system where we're bringing in people who might not even play rugby. So it might be meaning bringing partnerships, and that helps bring people towards the professional, the collegiate, the youth, which is really most important, and provide the memories that allow cycling. And then from that point on, you provide a value for those who might not be playing anymore, but are able to go in. And this isn't a new concept. I think a lot of people have put this into position, but it's part of what creates that like unifying fraternal network, sorority network, and creates that element of specialness that goes along with the rugby. And it also makes it so that that transaction piece works. We do it for memberships, obviously, for unions or for conferences, but I'm talking about from the club itself, and that should be all encompassing and being able to pull that off. So creating the value and then being able to see where that goes for most of the programs from that standpoint. Next, and this one was in reference to the conversation about Maro Itoje going from the Saracens possibly to somewhere else because of the fact that they don't have money. This was from Neil392. Neil said, problem is the salary cap has been cut by 2.5 million. Up to now has been able to have 2 marquee players outside the salary cap. From next year, only allowed 1. So they have a choice between Itoje and Farrell. This is the Saracens, Owen Farrell, whichever they picked, someone was going to be upset. And again, this goes back to a lot of the economic disenfranchisement that's happening with rugby right now. There's definitely a rugby recession that's occurring where we're seeing a lot of teams going. While I think the women's side is increasing, the men's side is depreciating with rapidity. And I don't know if there's been enough creative design to be able to stop it before it gets out of control. But it's something that needs to be done, and if it doesn't, you get affected, and you'll see Maro Itoje follow a Dan Carter to top 14 like he did way before, or go to Japan League One and see where the money is being spit out because they have just better models that work for them. And Premiership Rugby will continue to suffer, and you'll see that another London Irish, Worcester Warriors, Wasps RFC happen to another team, maybe Bristol, maybe Sales, maybe Exeter. Like, you don't know. Wales is already going through a lot of issues themselves, and they will probably have to contract their teams into one. So this is not unusual, but it's part of what is it. So I ain't convinced. Black out of 10.